Hello, everyone. So today we're going to be talking about the murder case of Arlene Byrd, and Antonio Smith. So this is a double homicide from Salisbury, Maryland, and in the articles I read, it's described as like something of a legend to the people there, and it's because when I get into the specifics of this case, you're going to be really baffled by the details. But all the links that I used for research will be down below, like always. And also, there is a link for a Google Docs form for case suggestions. There's about 3 to 4 questions that you can fill out. And yeah, let's go ahead and jump into this. So, Arlene was known as Twin and was loved in their Maryland community. She did people's hair and had friends all over the place. Her twin sister, Darlene Byrd, I'm not sure if it's a beard or bird, so I'm going to say Byrd. So her twin sister, Darlene, and their older sister, Keisha Hamilton, both say that she was someone everyone just wanted to be around. They describe her as being energetic, outspoken, outgoing, and the life of the party. She graduated from Wicomico High School in 1996. After she graduated, she worked at Furnitureland in Del Mar and Gomsis of Salisbury. She became a private sitter for some people, but later worked at a barbershop and boutique called Classy Cats in Salisbury. Antonio Smith, known as Butter, had a reputation that preceded him. Even if you didn't know him personally, a lot of people knew of him and they thought he was friendly and kind. Keisha says that he was one of the most humble guys she's ever been around, and everyone said he always made time for family and was a very giving person. He received his education from Wicomico. I'm so sorry if I'm butchering that name. He loved football and basketball, which were his favorite hobbies. They were amazing people, but unfortunately, their lives would be taken from them way too soon. Antonio was 26 and Arlene was 31 at the time. On July 17th, 2010, Antonio and Arlene attended a party together at Brew River. They left the restaurant to return to Antonio's apartment at around 3 a.m., where they would be accosted by multiple suspects. Due to their autopsy results, it's believed that they were tortured before their death. According to the report, they died from asphyxiation, stab wounds, and blunt force trauma. Police said the autopsy only begins to tell just how gruesome and torturous their deaths actually were. Police believe that night that Antonio was actually the target of the planned attack, and Arlene just ended up being in the middle of it by accident, so it was actually Antonio that they were after. Police believe that it was more than one person that carried out the crime, and that the killers were waiting for them inside the building, and before that they even made it to the apartment, they were actually held at gunpoint and forced into the apartment. So that's like the police's running theory. Over the next 2 hours, they would be tortured and eventually killed. The killers left behind a trail of blood outside the door, the stairs, and other places in the building that were clearly visible to anyone who would have walked by. So this is where you start to be like, okay. Because the thing is, nobody claims to have heard anything. And I'm going to get into more details about the apartment and whatnot, but just remember that there's blood literally everywhere. It's gruesome. So despite the noise, the blood, and obvious commotion from the apartment, no one called the police at all. Police were never called. It wasn't until later that morning that Darlene would start to feel like something was a little bit off, and she tried to call Arlene several times. After a few hours, she decided to drive around and look for her sister, and while searching, she called several friends, and one finally told her where Antonia lived. So Darlene went to the apartment building and saw their vehicles outside and thought maybe Arlene's phone was just dead or something, so she left around 12, but she still had an uneasy feeling for a while. Less than 2 hours later, she would return And this time, she would find his actual apartment, so she didn't go into the building the last time she showed there a couple hours before. She saw their cars, assumed they were fine, and left. Now she's actually going into the building. After getting to his door, Darlene notices the bloody footsteps coming out of the apartment and onto the landing. She says that when you opened the door, that there was blood smeared on the back of the door, and a huge puddle of blood trickling into the landing and down the stairs. So it is a mess. And no one, not a single person, thinks, this is a little weird. This might be a little bad. Let's call the police. Not a single person calls the police. Darlene would call 911, and police responded, where they would discover the badly beaten bodies of Arlene and Antonio. Despite conducting multiple interviews and questioning numerous people, no suspects have been named, and no arrests have been made. And in multiple articles that I was reading, Darlene would say that she didn't understand how nobody could call because she had actually lived there before and in these apartments before. And the walls were paper thin. Like, it was just one of those cheap apartments, So you could hear everything that goes on. Even if you live in a pretty nice apartment, you still hear things. Like, I lived in an apartment before, you heard everything. And if they were being tortured before being killed, there's probably screaming, thuds. It's not silent. And she just can't believe that no one, not a single person, heard anything. That's really weird. And nobody noticed the blood, the puddles of blood outside the door trickling down the steps. No one saw a thing. So the case would go cold, but there would be some new hope thanks to new technology that is allowing police to re-examine the crime scene. There are now DNA and lab tests that can be done to possibly uncover suspects or persons of interest. And that is giving police new possible leads. They were able to learn the blood outside the apartment belonged solely to Arlene and Antonio. So all of that blood, the puddles of blood and the landing and the stairs smeared, all of that was blood of Arlene and Antonio. And to this day, that's all they have. They have nothing else. And anyone with information is urged to call the Maryland State Police at the Salisbury Barrack at 410-749-3101. Again, that phone number is 410-749-3101. So let's talk about this. I truly can't even begin to tell you who I think could have done it, because no names were ever mentioned of who they thought could have done this. I will say a few times there were mentions of drugs and stuff, but everybody said that Antonio didn't dabble in that, but maybe he just didn't live in the best area or something like that. So I do want to say I didn't see it come up a lot. I just saw it in a couple articles, so take that with a grain of salt. But I'm not sure who I think it could be. They do believe that it's a planned attack, and it certainly seems that way. Just how it was happened as soon as they got home, apparently. And I wonder how planned it was to the point where nobody called the police. Was it that planned? They were able to keep them quiet? It seems really unlikely to me, but I guess you could see that it could be unplanned. But I wonder, just who it could be, because everyone described them as being very friendly and kind and humble, and everybody loving them. So it's what possible enemies could they possibly have, other than the couple things that were brought up about possible drugs or owing money or something like that. But I still think it's weird that not a single resident thought to call the police. And I don't know, maybe where this apartment is located, it's not in the best neighborhood. People don't want to be snitches. So it's kind of oh, I'll just mind my own business. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to get myself into trouble. That kind of thing. I used to live in a very bad neighborhood, and people just did not say anything if something happened. So it could be something like that, but I think that's really weird and super messed up that not a single person even thought to mention anything, like just nothing, and then the blood is just there all day. It's super odd to me. I don't know. But what do you guys think? Do you think it was planned? Do you think it was random? Why do you think it could have been planned? Um, and let me know your thoughts down below. If you're actually from Salisbury, Maryland, and you've heard of this case and maybe you know more information, I'd be really interested in knowing more if you want to leave that down below. But please be respectful in the comments. You never know if family is going to find this video, so just be very respectful. And if the family does find this video, I am very sorry what happened to Arlene and Antonio. They seemed like lovely people, and they deserve to live a full life, and I'm so sorry that they didn't get the chance to. But hopefully you guys can get some justice with this new technology and get some answers. And yeah, my thoughts are with you guys. If there's ever an update on this case, you guys know that I will bring it to you. But for now, that's all I have. Thank you so much for listening to Arlene and Antonio's case, and I will see you guys very soon. Bye, guys.